So hello everybody. This is my presentations on Apollo's song Quick Sigma and its beautiful underlying theme on ethnocentrism, or I would say our intolerance. But that will be up for debate a little bit in a little while. You see. So Apollo's song was a manga that originally featured in Shonen Weekly Shonen King in Japan in 1970s and illustrated the journey of a main protagonist, Shogochi Kaishi, to explore the meaning of love by experiencing love again and again in the past, the present, and the future. Um, but he was under a curse. That is, he always died before he could rejoice in love as a punishment. But as a punishment for his sins against love. It's actually reminiscent of a lot of Greek tragedies. But I want to focus on the chapter 4, Queen Sigma, because I believe that it is the most illustrative of the theme that I will find throughout all of Osamu's work. So, first of all, in this particular chapter, there are humans and there are sentients. So, who are the sentients? The sentients are, are artificial humans. You can say they are like a cyborg robot, but they basically takes over our societies, but not with the war or the style of Skynet. Rather, that they gradually replace us. They're stronger, they're smarter, they're better. We created them at first to be a labor force, but then later on, they become the dominant species. Now, well, you can say that they have gained their own independence, and they're basically making us slaves. The conflict established to be, an often found pattern within Osamu's work. That is was analyzed by Kristen Moran in her 2013 article, "The Metamorphic and Microscopic in Osamu's Graphic Novels." He has a long tradition of situating the central conflicts along the line of proximate morphological differences among beings. That basically, by excluding those that are similar to human but are not humanoids, or humanoids but are not humans, that we as humans find our own meaning. In this particular case, Shogo is actually working for a human resistance that try to overthrow the sentient rule. Now, the plot in Queen Sigma follow the similar concept. The human, well, first, and then there are discriminations by the sentient against human. They treat us as slave, and this scene in the diner actually reminds me a lot of Martin Luther King. They try to walk into a diner and try to ask to be served, but they weren't served. Very much similar, and actually reminds me of that. Now, we get into the heavy stuff. The modernity thinking peril of juxtapositions. Now, modern thinking. What is it about modern thinking? That in Osamu's work, he often have a theme. That is, we human has been detached away completely from nature, as in mentioned by Moran, and that we have gone too far, and that our own humanness, is actually to distinguish ourselves from everything else that is not human, that is natural. So you can see in these three panels, these things are actually gravestones. That we polluted the air, we basically polluted the air. We created the space for the sentient to rise to rules. So we basically dig our own graves. But there is another side to it, the destruction of nature. The reason why there are so many people that are dead was because of the destruction of nature. But when you move on a little bit, later on in the chapter, you would realize that the Scythians are actually no better than us. We die because we detach ourselves from nature, that we cling to our own humanity, our own science. But they are no different. They tear down mountains, cut down the entire cut down the entire Fujisan, so that they can build a space station. They are no different than us. They rely on their logic, their cold calculations, only so that they can prove to be superior than us in a way that we have proven ourselves to be superior, which is the central theme of anthrocentrism and intolerance of otherness. That the most fascinating thing about the resistance that Shogo, the main character, is that the notion of likeness, has originated from both sides. That this is a scene later on in the manga where the queen, the leader of the Scythians, was actually forced to go to hideout, and and at this point she is already in love with Shogo. She don't want to hurt humans anymore. But later on, the humans in the resistance still execute her because she is a Scythian, even though that she have proven to have feeling for Shogo, and she willing to shove Shogo aside so that he won't die with her, so that he won't die protecting her. That is one thing that the Scythian will never do, because the Scythian only know of cold calculative logic. She has already proven her humanity, but humans still don't care about that, because by defining themselves as human and different from the Scythians, different from the non-human, that they define themselves. This is actually a similar trope in a lot of Osamu's work. And next we have the Scythians. They do the same thing. This is actually from earlier in. This is actually in like the left panel. Is actually earlier in the manga, that the Scythian queens talks about how the Scythians are different physiologically. But as we have seen earlier, their model of thinking are no different than humans. They are truly homo, just another branch of homos, of humans. Like, yeah, Homo erectus. Basically, they are the same as us. They are truly our children, truly our creations. We left our civilization to them, and they do the same things that we do. They discriminate against those that look like Scythians but are not Scythians. And because of that, in this aspect, they are even more human than we ever thought they were. They are more like us, stubborn. And that's the beauty of it. The way that Osamu puts it, these two conflicting sides of the story as two sides of the same coin, it gives you a sense of how we truly are when we reflect upon it, that we are both the perpetrator and the victim, that we are both discriminating and being discriminated, that we are intolerant of the otherness, but at the same time asking for the same tolerance is just beautiful. And that's my presentation.